Thank you for coming. It's a distinct pleasure to be hosting this panel. We will be talking about the complexities of this very, very important region, understanding both its fracture and the potential for cooperation. In that context, we understand that the South Caucasus has both geostrategic and to a very large extent, substantive importance to the entire Eurasian subcontinent. In that context, things that happen in this small region tend to have a multiplying effect, not only specifically to the region itself, but also to the broader related and interconnected parts of the Eurasian subcontinent. In that context, we're going to attempt to understand from our esteemed panelists their positions and their understanding of the nuances that shape the level of fracturing and discourse in the region. We're also going to understand from the experience of our guests on how Armenia and the region can enhance sustainable and sort of a robust ability to establish stability and thus enhance regional interconnectivity. With not much more ado, we will begin the conversation. Our first panelist speaking would be ORF Mirzoyan. And my question is specific to understanding the restructuring of regional fragmentation. Armenia has been playing a very constructive role in attempting to establish the foundations for regional stability. And of course, a very important part of this is achieving regional peace, and that is being able to establish peace with Azerbaijan. We understand what Armenia wants, but what is attainable by virtue of, at times, Azerbaijan's non-constructive position has slowed down or created obstacles for regional stability. From your perspective, Foreign Minister, how do you envision what peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan can actually look like and what can actually be achieved? Not what we want, but what substantively in reality can be achieved.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Dear colleagues, and thank you for this question. Basically, earlier today, His Excellency Prime Minister of Armenia already has reflected upon these topics, but again, coming back to this very important topic, I would like to say that South Caucasus is very much like many other regions and areas on this planet. We have long history here with our neighbors, and I can assure you that there have been times when we have been cooperating and also we have been interesting for the rest of the world, and we have been an important player, if you want, in global politics. We all together in South Caucasus, we have been important crossroad for trade routes, etc., etc. But also there have been times when we have been killing each other, and you know, this region, like probably many other regions in the world, we have seen, now we think that we have seen enough blood here. We have a real chance now, we, Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, we have a real chance to close the page of enmity in this region and to open an era of stability and peace. And we believe that this would be beneficial for all of us. Not only the three of us will benefit from this, but also our neighbors, the larger region, all the other players and nations in the world. So we are really at a crossroad, and we have to choose. We in Armenia, we have made up our mind, and we chose the peace agenda because we believe in the benefits of peace. But as anyone can assume, it's very much like tango, and I really love repeating this. You cannot dance it alone. You need the other partner wanting, willing to dance with you. So this is a choice that should be made not only by Armenia, but also by Georgia, by Azerbaijan. Well, luckily we have happy and lucky enough to enjoy very good and brotherly relations with Georgia, but also we're looking forward to establishing peace and stability with Azerbaijan as well. And is that realistic? I think yes. And we have examples before our eyes. My distinguished colleague, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister of Luxembourg, probably can assure that they in Europe, they also have had tough neighborhood, tough conflicts. They also have seen enough blood. And they were strong enough to change the direction in which that specific region went occasionally, as we saw. And all of us sitting in this hall, we can see that that decision brought prosperity to Europe. Also, distinguished former president of Lithuania probably can say that they also have seen enough conflicts. So this is a decision that everyone should make, and our determination is peace. What realistically could be done? We already see some tangible steps. We see that the limitation of the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan has begun. We see that there is a discussion about unblocking and opening all regional transport and economic infrastructure. We see that, at least from our side, there is a very constructive dialogue regarding the peace treaty. And we all know that and this is another interesting layer and interesting nuance of this issue. We notice that we here in the South Caucasus, we are interesting to the rest of the world when we are cooperating. And of course, we can, three of us, we can survive being fragmented. We can survive somehow separately. We have been surviving for a couple of thousands of years here, and hopefully we will continue living here as a free nation for another couple of thousands of years. But when we are united, when we are cooperating, at least when we have some environment of or absence of enmity or environment of cooperation and collaboration, tolerance here in South Caucasus, then the interest of the rest of the world, interest in South Caucasus is much higher. We are interesting for the world, and this is my belief, altogether as a South Caucasus. So here I would like to stop and give a chance to the other panelists and looking forward to interesting dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will do a follow-up once the other panelists have spoken and inquire about how we consider to be other regional actors such as Turkey and Russia and their role in the peace process. But we'll come back to that as well. My next question is, is for Mr. Bettel. Luxembourg is a very interesting small state in that it punches above its weight. It's a small state with exceptional success in multilateralism. It has spawned Benelux with Belgium and Luxembourg, and so for a state of its size, it performs exceptionally well in a supranational entity, while demonstrating a great deal of capacity building and sort of success in being able to manage and engage with more powerful actors in its vicinity. What advice can Luxembourg give to Armenia and to the region on small state success? And I also would like your opinion on how Armenia can succeed as a small state in its strategic engagement with the European Union.
Thank you so much for the invitation. When you say that Armenia and Luxembourg are both small countries, you're not that small. First thing. The second thing is you don't choose your neighbors. When I looked at the past of my country, we had difficult times with nearly, except the Belgians, but with French, and we were occupied by everyone. And in the last century, I don't need to remind that the Germans thought they would know better what is good for the future of my country than ourselves. And in fact, we were able to realize that to have common projects was in fact the best peace project. We started with the Benelux, so with Belgium and the Netherlands. We even have a parliament of that, with the Benelux parliament. And I just spoke with my colleague Dalia also when we had meetings with the Baltic Assembly, also with the Nordic Assembly. So these regional parliaments where we discussed also regional topics. I had yesterday a meeting with the Speaker of the House here in Yerevan. I told him why not having an initiative to have discussions with other parliamentarians from Georgia, from Azerbaijan, and also from the region here to discuss about transborder problems, also with Turkey and with Iran. Some ideas, but just to have common goals. So this is how Luxembourg realized that you are much bigger when you do things in common. Very often we think that doing things alone is the best solution. That's wrong. Doing things together is the best way to move on. I said you don't choose your partners. You don't choose, your neighbors. Your partners you can choose. Your neighbors you cannot choose. And believe me, our history are all different. You have a different history here in Armenia than in Luxembourg. In Lithuania, they have a different history and a different relation with the neighbors than we have. We had, and I take the opportunity, we have a representative from the Iranian government here at the roundtable. We hoped that with the last elections in Iran, we would have also a more stable partner in Iran. I don't want to ask you now, but for us now, we read in the papers that they gave 20,000 missiles to the Russians. So these are going to be questions. Are we going to continue the old difficult relations with Iran, or are we going to move on a better way? To be very frank, because we have to say these things. So you can't choose your neighbors. I believe in dialogue. I love to be able to speak here at the Yerevan Dialogue, because the worst in politics and in relations is a monologue. And if we have the Yerevan monologue, it doesn't bring anything. We need to have partners around the table. We need to have also neighbors around the table. And we need to be able to say the things in a way where we try to build something together. Peace is never granted. When I speak to our Ukrainian colleagues, they know what it means to have a situation nowadays where bigger countries think that the law of the strongest is what is right. I believe in the rule of law. I believe in international law, but on the other hand, when you say what is the role of our countries, the problem is that all our international fora are done for good situations. We see it with Palestine and Israel. We see it with Russia and Ukraine. We see that as an international body, we are not able to interact. When we see the Security Council working on the basis of the Second World War, there is still no African country in the Security Council. We see that if one country wants to block decisions, we are all blocked. We see in the European Union that the rules were done where we went 7 or 15, we are now 27 around the tables. We are hostages sometimes of our own rules. So I just can recommend to our Armenian colleague to stay on the right side of the history and also of the future, because we cannot change the history, but we can make the future together. And they did huge efforts. I wouldn't be here if I would sit and I wouldn't be able to speak freely. I'm able to speak in a country where in some neighboring countries I wouldn't be able to speak. Here as a liberal, as a gay man, as a politician, being able to speak freely in front of an audience without having fears to have problems afterwards when I leave the stage is important to support. So I think Armenia deserves our support, they deserve our attention, and we shouldn't ask them to choose between, but to be able to help them to stay as they are with their history, with their traditions, with their culture, with their country, and with their peace plans, because we should never forget, we take the decisions, but it's the people on the ground who suffer from our decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I will revert back to you with a set of interesting questions with respect to conflicts of interest when we circle back. Madam President, There's quite a bit of, well, a lot of differences, but similarities between the Baltics as a post-Soviet region and the South Caucasus as a post-Soviet region. While the Baltics has seen less fragmentation, it did undergo through a process of development and strengthening that has allowed it to be an intricate part of the European Union and sort of the Euro-Atlantic project. The South Caucasus, of course, are still in the process, facing a lot of complexities. Within the Baltics, Lithuania stands out as an example, and a very healthy example, of small state capacity building and resilience. One could say Armenia has a lot to learn from Lithuania. Based on your experience and how you understand these developments, what advice would Lithuania give Armenia for ensuring regional security and also being able to operate and function in a region that has not attained the level of stability required for healthy development?
The worst thing is to make an advice to anybody, because even we're not able to advise ourselves sometimes, and we're behaving sometimes spontaneously, sometimes not very clever, but always having in mind our future, our statehoodness, and freedom and independence. This was our guiding direction, which helped us to make right choice where our friends are, with whom we could cooperate, and what path to choose. And on this path, of course, we were lucky that already from 2004, that means about 20 years, we are European members, and during these 20 years, we were able to reach almost 90% of European standard of living in 20 years, starting from very, very low. And we are very similar to your country, not much energy resources, almost nothing, 3 million people, no minerals practically, only people, again, our education, our resilience, our willingness to fight for ourselves and to invest into our country. So that was the 20 years path. We started from cooperating with Baltic states. We had Baltic State Council. Of course, we got very serious, immediate support from Nordic countries, and we cooperated with Nordic countries very close, and then later with all European Union. So from this point of view, the decision to enter the economic security, I would say, club as European Union was very useful for us. But of course, that meant a lot of reforms, a lot of responsibility by ourselves, and to build resilience by ourselves. And firstly, it's not just theory, it's about economic resilience. Economic resilience means energy resilience. Today, we are not, or we fully, 100%, do not depend on any country on energy resources. 10 years ago, we were 100% dependent on Russian gas. Today, zero. And that was a huge effort, not very cheap efforts, but all nations was united and understood that political independence could be based only on energy and economic independence. That not means that you're cutting all ties with a neighbor you don't like, no. But you can choose with whom and from whom you buy. And today we are able to do this. And that's our strength. Our political system is not able anymore to be bought or corrupted because we are choosing with whom and how to develop our country. And this I just wish as one of the examples where Armenia can learn, not exactly to do the same steps, but the goal of resilience, economic, energy resilience, is a basic and the main thing for your securing your independence, political and economic, and all statehoodness in the region. And then, of course, history was difficult. Europe always was a bubbling territories through centuries as Caucasus, and all of us, we're choosing flexibly, very creatively our path, all of us. The same today with you, the same with us. Some examples could be taken, not in full, but any good examples anyway need to be then adapted to the local conditions, local mentality, local traditions, including, for example, we have a so-called Kaliningrad corridor, where railway is, Russia can transit through our territory by full Lithuanian control, the commodities and people, but it's fully controlled by Lithuania. It's not under special treaty, it's purely technical intergovernmental arrangement. We didn't put it on the high level. We didn't want it to do this. It is technical arrangement, works very well. Nobody has any complaints anymore. But in the very beginning, it was political problem, it was pressure, it was hand struggling between ourselves. But under international law, we had good professional lawyers, we managed to have good arrangement. But as I said, it's elements which need to be used in a very creative form, adapting to your needs, adapting to today's situation and to your environment. So a lot of examples could be taken because smaller nations, they are more flexible and they could be more resilient because of that and more creative because of that. For larger countries, inertia of large country sometimes not allowed to make reforms very speedy. We were able to do this. Some countries were, including democratic reforms, were doing 100 years. We did it in 5 or 10 years. Our preparation for European membership and reform process took only 10 years for us. And we made everything from scratch and changed from scratch. So I want to give a little bit optimism that no matter how difficult today looks like, no matter how militarily unsecure today in some regions we are feeling ourselves, but historically, smaller countries can be more creative, more flexible, having larger survival skills. And during this century, we survived to exist. We grown to the stage where we are heard and visible, and we can do it in future even more.
Thank you very much for the comments. Indeed, very constructive and provides a broader platform for small state behavior in underdeveloped and fractured regions. My next question is for Mr. Darsalia. When we look at Georgia, we see interesting level of success amidst external occupation. 20% roughly of Georgian territory is currently occupied, which is a situation currently proportionally speaking that Armenia is also undergoing, which is creating, of course, complexities that obstruct development and do not allow for interconnectivity and success. But Georgia has found a way to work through that while also trying to address that problem. How does Georgia envision cooperation and regional interconnectivity while itself dealing with this continuous security concern?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, let me use this opportunity and extend my appreciation to Armenia and Armenian colleagues for organizing this very important event and allowing us to gather here with these distinguished panelists and discuss the issues connected to the region generally. And thank you, Mr. Moderator, for important and very good question, which allows me to elaborate a few ideas about the regional cooperation. And our panel is called South Caucasus at the Crossroads. But maybe first component I want to talk is Crossroads in South Caucasus. And this was also highlighted during the Prime Minister of Armenia's speech and of other colleagues. Historically, Georgia, as well as the whole region, is geographically located in a crossroads of the trade between East and West. And this becomes even more important today, especially in this changing context of the world politics and geopolitical context we have, especially after Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine, when the so-called middle corridor, which in fact is a central corridor, became even more and more important for trade between East and West. And South Caucasus, Georgia, are located in the middle of this middle or central corridor. And this trade, Black Sea-Caspian Sea connectivity, the trade is important for Europe's energy security, for Europe's economical security, and this is one of the major factors which defines the geopolitical environment in South Caucasus. The other component is the regional cooperation. When we are talking, on the one hand, so when we are talking about this geographical location, historically and today, this was at the same time opportunity and challenge. On the one hand, this was blessing, inviting positive interest of different countries and regions for developing trade and connectivity, but it was also inviting the invaders as well. And this is the fact that Georgia is facing as well today. When we are talking about the regional cooperation, Georgia has the significant problem, of course, with the occupation of 20%, as you mentioned, as well, of its territory from the Russian Federation. On the other hand, we enjoy very good relations with our neighbors. Georgia for a long time now had the strategic partnership with Armenia and Azerbaijan. From this year, we upgraded our cooperation, as Minister also mentioned, to strategic partnership with Armenia as well, and this is important development for us. And it is important that when we are talking about regional cooperation, it is responsibility of all actors to manage, to engage in this cooperation and manage the interests. We are with great interest watching the development in our region, and we have now with this policies of rapprochement between Armenia and Turkey, with the peace process which is going on, and we hope that it will be successful between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Georgia getting the European candidate status last year. We have new era in our region and new developments in our region, which opens doors for the regional cooperation. Georgia itself is committed to invest in the regional cooperation, and especially the key issue at the moment, of course, is Armenia's and Azerbaijan's relations. We are very much committed to have our role in this process, and I maybe want to highlight what Georgia is not offering. Georgia is not offering mediation. Georgia is not offering the parallel processes to the already existing processes. Georgia wants just to add to these efforts of other partners while offering the regional cooperation. We see that it's very difficult at the moment to have the positive agenda in bilateral setting. What Georgia is offering trilateral setting, where maybe will be more opportunity more opportunities to develop the positive agenda which will help the bilateral cooperation. So when Georgia is offering Tbilisi as a venue of meeting, it is important to understand that Georgia is not offering replacing the or parallel tracks to the existing processes, but offering its the additional component which have to help the bilateral cooperation of our very good neighbors. And last but not least, I want to add to this that all these efforts we are, and this is economical, social, economical, or geopolitical context of the regional cooperation, but when talking about values, it is also very important, and it always was a key policy of Georgia that sorry using this term West, but in this part of the world we still use these terminologies of Cold War. But for Georgia it is important that West is duly present in all these processes in South Caucasus. Will Georgia's choice, and as I said, this is choice of values, will Georgia's choice to become the member of European and Euro-Atlantic area, this is first of all choice of values. And it is important for us that all these processes which is going and all this cooperation and cooperation and coordination of our interests in the South Caucasus is also part of cooperation and cooperation of the region with the West. So maybe I'll stop here and leave the space to go into more deep into these issues, maybe through the questions after the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. My next question is for Mr. Sheikh al-Islami. Iran has been playing a very important and constructive role in the South Caucasus with respect to attempting to maintain regional stability. For all the conflicts that we have seen in the region since the late 80s, early 90s, Iran has neither intervened into these conflicts nor has it sought to leverage itself accordingly. And this constructive role right now is becoming an important component in attempting to develop a level of stabilization with respect to Armenia and Azerbaijan. But in a broader sense, my question to you is, how does Iran envision concretely, how does it envision supporting regional stability? What is Iran's ultimate objective as far as making certain that conflict does not break out in the region again and that stability is maintained?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you all for listening to us, and I would like to avail the opportunity for extend my appreciation to the government of Armenia for inviting me, and also a delegation from Iran to participate in this very important conference. Let me take a more theoretical approach as an introduction to my discussion. As His Excellency the Prime Minister mentioned, the world is changing right now. And if you look to the megatrends in the world, security, political, economic, environmental, and also technological macro trends, you will come to the result that the world is changing. Nowadays, almost everybody, academics, politicians, the others, they agree that the world is changing. But there is no consensus on the extension and also on the intensity of the changes. In a very simple categorization, I would say there are three different approaches toward the change in international system. The first approach belongs to those who believe that the changes that are taking place are instrumental and functional in nature. By this, I mean, according to them, the world system is revising governance mechanisms to adapt to emerging threats, highly advanced new technologies, and cognitive transformations that at the societal level. The second approach considers changes at the level of quote-unquote global order, which means that with the emergence of new actors and failure of global projects of westernization and unilateralism, the world is moving towards a new order in which we will witness a multipolar or post-polar structure. The third group of analysts believe that the depth and intensity of the changes are even more and will include changes in international system itself. The change in international system, as you all know, is caused by fundamental changes in the philosophical foundation, values, the structure of system, the role of actors, and the distribution of capabilities among the main actors. Let me right now avail the opportunity and take your attention to what is going on in Gaza. It seems that it is the collapse of the values, Western values like human rights, the others, claims by many countries, killing of more than 40,000 people, most of them are children and women, in 9 months, and no action, nothing. It is quite surprising to me that here, when we are talking about peace and security and stability in the South Caucasus region, the esteemed guest from Luxembourg repeats the media games, claims, let's say, against my country. Even your allies in the United States officially announced that they cannot verify these claims. Iran categorically rejects any claim with regard to selling any type of missiles or anything to Russia. And our position towards the Ukraine crisis is quite clear. Iran has never recognized the accession of Crimea to the Russia. Iran has officially announced its neutrality in the, Ukraine crisis. Of course, Iran and Russia are neighboring countries. They have had and do have different types of cooperations, including defense cooperation. All of you know about our official positions towards the Ukraine crisis, and I would not like to repeat it. In any case, seems that the philosophical foundation of international system right now are at risk. Okay, the three approaches depict the future of the world system differently, but they are the same on one very important point. Their idea regarding this point is the same, and that is the importance of regions in the future of the world. Geographical regions are becoming more and more important and significant in shaping the future of the world system. Among them, of course, the South Caucasus region has held, holds, and will hold significant importance for several reasons. Some of them have been already told by my colleagues here in this panel. This region holds, a very special importance for my country due to several key factors. Iran shares deep civilizational, historical, and cultural connections with the region. This includes shared heritage and long-standing relationships with the countries of the region, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. From a geopolitical point of view, the region serves as a strategic connection point between other major powers. This region's stability directly impacts Iran's northern borders and its overall security. It is also very important for us to prevent any spillover of conflicts or instability into our territory. From a geo-economic angle, the South Caucasus is also important for my country in terms of energy and trade routes. It is a critical transit route for energy pipeline and trade corridors. Iran is interested in using the capacity of these routes to strengthen its connectivity with Europe and Eurasia, and in turn, it is ready to provide its transit infrastructure to expand connectivity inter alia with South Asia, Central Asia, West Asia, and the Persian Gulf. Just a very short account of my country's positions with regard to the situation in the region. The Islamic Republic of Iran, first of all, has, as already mentioned by the esteemed moderator, has always been a driving force for peace and security in the region. We fully support lasting peace and stability in South Caucasus, and in this regard, we welcome the peace negotiations between the Republic of Armenia and the Republic of Azerbaijan, and we underline the need to speed up the signing of the peace agreement. We are ready to help our neighbors to settle disputes between them at the earliest. We support the formation of a strong and united region within the framework of our neighborhood policy. We welcome the removal of blockages from the transportation routes in the region by emphasizing the need to respect the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and jurisdiction of the countries along the route, and the respect of the mutual interests of all countries in the region. Very importantly, we believe that the South Caucasus must not become a battleground for competition and swordplay of the external powers. In this context, it is important to firmly oppose any hidden agenda to destabilize the region and lay the groundwork for changing internationally recognized borders. The principal status in the Armenian Peace Crossroad Plan, that is territorial integrity, sovereignty, jurisdiction, and reciprocity, are emphasized and supported by the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we think that all countries should adhere to these principles. The neighborhood policy is one of the main priorities of the foreign policy of President Pezeshkian's administration, the newly appointed president of my country. We attach a great value to friendly and brotherly relations with our neighbors. As a noble neighbor with historical and cultural ties, Armenia has a special place in the neighborhood policy of my country. There is a serious political will to develop relations with Armenia in all fields and dimensions. We are satisfied with the current level of relations, and at the same time, we are determined to use all the capacities available in order to deepen friendship, expand communications, and increase cooperation between the two countries. Let me emphasize that the borders of my country and the Republic of Armenia are the borders of peace, friendship, hope, and life. The borders of historical relations, people-to-people communications, and peaceful coexistence. By this, I conclude my remarks, and I would be at your service if any question, any comment raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to invite a little bit of controversy in my follow-up questions because as a professor, I have to engage in lively discourse. So it's kind of warm things up here. Mr. Foreign Minister, I would like your honest opinion on the role of regional power actors with respect to the peace process that we talked about and whether they're playing a constructive or potentially concerning role. First, I'd like your assessment of Turkey's role, and second, the role of Russia in the Armenia-Azerbaijani peace process.
Well, thank you very much. This is quite an interesting question indeed. Russia, I know how many of us perceive Russia and its role, but I would like to state to us that Russia has already played a very constructive role. Russia is the country who succeeded to mediate and then signed a ceasefire after the war of 2020. And then Russia is the country who started the mediation process and who brought the two countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan, to the table of negotiations. This is a role that later was continued by the United States, the European Union, other countries and partners like France, Germany. I would like to remind that the most recent meeting between me and my Azerbaijani counterpart took place in Kazakhstan. So again, we are thankful to all those countries who have tried to bring positions of Armenia and Azerbaijan closer. But also we're not naive. We of course understand that all the countries, everybody in the world, they have their own interests, and these interests not necessarily always coincide with the interests of Republic of Armenia in our case, and I'm pretty much sure with the Republic of Azerbaijan the case is the same. Like this is a theoretical axiomatic truth, I think, but nevertheless, so not necessarily the interests and the vision of Russia and Republic of Armenia coincide. I would like to have my Russian counterpart here as well, sitting with us and participating in deliberation. By the way, I'm enjoying this momentum where we can hear the distinguished representatives of Luxembourg, Lithuania, and at the same time distinguished representative of Iran. This is all Yerevan Dialogue about. So we should be listening to each other more. We should be taking into consideration each other's positions more. And as I said earlier today, this is the chance. If we have a chance, then the dialogue and the conversations are the only path. So coming back again to your question, in the same logic, I would like to have my distinguished colleague from Turkey participating in this deliberation as well. As well as I wish we have had signed this, we have this peace treaty signed, and I had the chance also to see my Azerbaijani colleague here. Turkey can, of course, understandably play a crucial role in this process of establishing peace and stability in South Caucasus. You most probably are aware that we have launched a dialogue with Turkey, and it's quite already a long time that we have this dialogue. There have been many small or larger steps that the two sides we implemented in terms of building more confidence among each other, but in between us. But also as you are aware, we have agreed to establish diplomatic relations. We don't have any diplomatic relations with Turkey so far, and also open the borders between Armenia and Turkey. So I would say that we have very good understanding, and we have even shared vision of future of our relations, and also, as everywhere, we have some complications as well. You know that very often in Turkey they connect the Armenian-Turkish normalization with finalization of Armenian-Azerbaijani normalization. Well, I personally don't think this is the most efficient way of building relations. In contrary, if we have tangible progress and open borders with Turkey, then obviously this would have a very tangible and positive effect on Armenian-Azerbaijani normalization. Nevertheless, the process continues. And Russia and Turkey and Iran and all the other partners, Luxembourg and Lithuania, they all can have positive role in the process of normalization between Armenia and Azerbaijan and bringing new era of peace to our region.
Thank you very much for your answer. Less aggressive than anticipated, but nonetheless diplomatic. My question next is for Mr. Patel, and Madam President can join the conversation as well, because this is specific to role of the European Union and their influence on the South Caucasus. The external actors aren't only Russia, Turkey, and Iran, or the more powerful actors in the region. The EU as a supernatural entity is also an important source of influence in the region. Very recently, Ukraine and Georgia were given candidacy status, and Armenia has noted that it has European aspirations. And so clearly in the post-Soviet space, the European Union is becoming an important base of policy development and orientation. Now, in that context, how concerned, Mr. Patel, are you, or if you're not concerned, with developments in the region, specific with countries that you have given, the EU has given candidacy status for? And if these processes do tend to slow down and not proceed as Europeans have anticipated, would that have a negative effect on Armenia's future trajectory?
First thing is, I have to tell you, I'm so happy to be in Yerevan and to hear from our Iranian colleagues. So there is not and there will not be Iranian weapons used by the Russians against Ukraine. Just, I take note and I really appreciate that statement, and I thank you. The second thing is, when we speak about dialogue, this is something I believe in dialogue, as I told you before. And I was one of the very few European leaders who had phone calls at the beginning of the war with President Putin and with President Zelensky on a weekly basis. I called one, I called the other, I called one, I called the other, I called the one, I called the other. As Arad said before, when I realized that there was no wish for dialogue from the Russian side, I gave up. Because you need a partner to have a dialogue. And then Bucha happened, and then for me it was not explainable to sit around the table with my European colleagues and on the other side still continue to discuss. But we will need a dialogue also with Russia. As I told you before, we won't change the neighbors. Russia will exist as a country, and there is no use to make peace conferences without Russia. If we want a peace conference, it will be a conference where Russia will be also around the table. When you ask me the European role, in fact, if you speak now about the Russia-Ukrainian war, I'm very honest with you. I believe that the only two ones who could bring peace in this country would be the Chinese and the American president. I'm sorry to be that frank. We see that all the others, we can have meetings and meetings and meetings, but if the Chinese president and the American president decides, because they are more linked to Ukraine and more to Russia, that there should be peace tomorrow, I think this could move on the things. But it's not on the agenda, it looks like today. When we speak also about the opportunities here, we have some momentums. We have in Baku soon the COP. If the Azeri government wants to prove that they believe in peace and they want to be pragmatic and they want to be constructive, it is the moment that before the COP29, this peace agreement should be signed. It's the interest of all. If not, I have to be very honest with you. If they refuse to sign before the COP, I don't know what could happen after the COP. And so I think it's the momentum where we as international community, and I speak as international community, because to be very honest about the war in Ukraine and Russia, and I don't want to be misunderstood as a European country, we had the Normandy format, Europe was absent. We had discussions with Russia, there was Turkey, there was the other countries, there is China, there is India today, but it's the fact that the European Union, because we have 27 countries with 27 rules who have been created during the honeymoon phase, and not during more difficult phase, we are not able to have common positions. So we are very strong economic weight, but politically, in foreign affairs, because we need the unanimity, we are not able to have very often strong common positions. And that's the reason why also we are not a heavyweight in regional aspects. So we take sanctions and sanctions and sanctions and sanctions, and we claim what is not going right. But I strongly believe in dialogue. I strongly believe that European Union, when we want to be stronger, it cannot be just with sanctions or money. It should be also with political weight and with supporting countries, and not just if you don't agree with us, you are bad and you'll be punished. The world is not black and white. And the Iranian colleague spoke also about the situation in Palestine and Israel. I really dislike the situation for the moment. And it's terrible. When you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semitic, and when you criticize Palestine, you support the genocide. So, and it's, believe me, the situation is, you cannot be in favor of Palestine or in favor of Israel. You have to be in favor of peace. And you have to be in favor of two-state solution. So we shouldn't see the world in a black or white position. There are situations where there is gray, and we should allow to have the dialogues possible, to have common positions, and especially peace. I repeat what I said before. The civil populations are the biggest victims of our not possibility to find agreements on the ground.
Thank you very much. If you were in American politics, the dynamics would be very different. Great rhetorical skills. Madam President, I would like your opinion with respect to Lithuania as a member of the European Union and how they qualify the whole process of the countries in the South Caucasus or in the post-Soviet space receiving candidacy and eventually potentially being on the European trajectory.
For us, it took about 10 years of self-understanding and then negotiations with European Union countries. But again, you cannot take everything in what happened in the past, because it is about also political window of opportunity. Europe was ready, we have been ready, and it happened. The same is here. You not only need to be prepared for peace, but also you need to have and see the window of opportunity and to seek to use this window of opportunity. For me, for example, it was very, I would say, positive discovery about coming here and hearing that the border with Iran in this region is one of the most peaceful. Believe me, I didn't realize that it is the case. So, because we have, let's say, perception about some countries, some regions in a very different way. It depends in what arena the behavior is evaluated. So why I'm saying that, and also adding that really their life is more difficult, more colorful, but the window opportunity means also there is a lack of political leadership, responsible political leadership, which is ready and capable to take personal risk. As politicians, especially in democratic societies, it's not easy, but it is always political risk of your political future. if you are having strategic decision to make. But that's a sacrifice any political leader needs to take on. And even with the smaller countries in foreign policy in the European Union, but still we able to push larger ones to be more decisive. It's not easy. For us, smaller ones, it's a lot easier to criticize and be, let's say, courageous, because we are not risking for too much. But what we capable to do, to push the button of consciousness of some other leaders who can and who should make a decision. And this is about European leadership. It is also about American leadership. So that's our goal of smaller countries, to be irritating, to be difficult, but because of that, to be heard and not to be ignored. That's more or less our function, which we try to use.
Thank you so much. And we will wrap up our panel because we are reaching the end of our time with final comments from Georgia. I want to give the Deputy Minister of Georgia an opportunity to respond with respect to what Georgia, Tbilisi views its future European aspirations. And then I would like some concrete comments on the future trajectory of Armenia-Georgia relations. Not sort of the general stuff that we could all anticipate, but concretely, what does Georgia consider to be in its strategic interest as it grows its relationship with Armenia?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And first of all, first part of your question, Georgia has two key red lines and two, I would say, key issues of its foreign policy as it exists as a modern country from 90s. And these two key issues are Georgia's European and Euro-Atlantic integration and Georgia's territorial integrity. And while second is understandable for everyone why it is red line, I will concentrate on the first one. And first of all, this is not choice of Georgia just of welfare when talking about European Union or about security when talking about NATO, but first of all, this is choice of values, and that's why it does not have alternative for Georgia. Of course, it's not secret that at the moment we don't have best time of our relation with our partners, but everyone in Georgia believes that it's just issue of time, and we will be able to come back to this normal stage of our relations. As the question is not about this, I will not go more deep into that, but talking about Georgia and Armenia's strategic partnership, this was when the beginning of this year we signed the declaration of strategic partnership between our countries. This was a very important decision for Georgia, and key idea of this is that unfortunately, during the last 3 decades, talking about South Caucasus as a political region was not true. South Caucasus was everything, geographical region, I don't know, some spot on a map, but not the politically united region. And this was allowing for manipulation inside of the region for different and unhealthy involvement of different powers, and first of all, our northern neighbor. And key goal of Georgia is that through regional cooperation increase the resilience of South Caucasus to be in charge of its own fate and to limit this unhealthy influence from outside. And when we are talking, and part of this for Georgia is of course our strategic partnership with Armenia, and we believe that this will increase not twice, but even more, our capabilities to define our future ourselves. And as the spirit of this conference shows, in this future we all see, and especially these two countries see as part of Europe politically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This completes our panel. My deepest gratitude to all the panelists and for everybody attending. And while this was the first panel that kicked off the Yerevan Dialogue, we anticipate more lively conversations and discourse. And in essence, when we talk about alleviating fragmentation and enhancing cooperation, this dialogue, this event is a metaphor of what Armenia and the region can hold for the future. So thank you all for attending. And again, thank you for my panelists.